Hello everyone, thank you for being here. My name is Jille. I'm a Java software engineer at Ordina, and I currently have an awesome assignment at the Dutch Forensic Institute. I live together with my other half and mentor Frank in Breda, the Netherlands, and with our adventure cat Jada. And yes, an adventure cat is really something, so if you're triggered by the term right now, go to www.adventurecats.org and see that we're not the only geeks here. She's also named after one of my other heroes, Yoda, who's also a mentor. And Jada also means chosen one in Hebrew, and since she is a cat, everything came together at that point. I like to keep myself busy with the magic of tech, people, health, sports, traveling, and riding my motorbike. And before I start my talk, I would like to let you know that you can ask your questions through Slido. The event code is GeeCON 2022. And you can also upvote questions, and I will answer the most popular questions at the end of my talk. To start this talk with, I'd like to introduce you to one of my childhood heroes, Mr. Miyagi. But before I do so, I would like to know something first. Please raise hands if you're thinking, Mr. Who? All right, well, don't worry, because we'll come to this right now. Mr. Miyagi, first I would like to take you to when I was about 8 years old. At that age, I remember very well, you could ask your parents if you could stay up longer to watch a nice movie, for example, in the weekends. So one weekend evening, I asked my parents, my very first mentors by the way, Mom, Dad, can I please stay up longer tonight to watch Karate Kid? And they said yes, because I didn't have to go to school the next day. And that's how I met Mr. Miyagi. I think I can't introduce Mr. Miyagi to you any better than the main character of the story, Daniel, who's also being called Daniel's son. You are about to meet the greatest guy. This guy, he's funny, he's smart. I mean, you got a problem, he's got the answer. He's like no one you ever meet. And on top of that, he just happens to be my best friend. Mr. Miyagi comes from Okinawa, Japan. He has a deep philosophical knowledge of life and extraordinary karate skills. He's a genuinely caring, sweet, warm-hearted person and a friendly person. He's wise, very, very wise. And he has an ingenious sense of humor. And with this package, he was Daniel's karate sensei, a mentor. And he made him a worthy champion. As an 8-year-old, what I loved about Mr. Miyagi is that he took the effort to pass on something he was very good at to a younger generation. Selflessly, and initially, without knowing each other well. Simply based on the right chemistry they had with each other. I think I even wished he was my grandfather, because I've never really had a grandfather figure in my life. And also because from a very young age, I wanted to become very good at what I do. Mr. Miyagi's martial art caught my interest because I felt that if I could do that, I could always take care of myself. And he taught with morals in place. He was never aggressive and would only fight to defend himself, showing that he did not allow his abilities to corrupt his mind. He was teaching Daniel both life lessons and karate to protect himself. I was hooked from the moment I saw this movie. I even decided that I wanted to become a Kelly-san, my own hero. Now I'd like to take you to some of my own Mr. Miyagis, my own mentors. 2 years passed after my wish to become a Kelly-san. And then it happened. My own karate journey started with my own sensei. The karate school where I ended up at happened to be one of the 2 best schools in the Netherlands at the time. So it started to look more and more at Karate Kid in real life. My sensei was a fantastic teacher, completely devoted to what he taught us. And he taught us and everyone else in our dojo what he knew and what he could. With us in this context, I mean the small tournament group I was part of. He taught us all that you can achieve a lot with dedication, discipline, the right mindset, practice and perseverance. That karate is a weapon. That you must always try to solve things with compassion first. The dojo was inside a primary school, where we could train 2 days a week. But with the tournament group, we trained more often, which resulted in us often training outside. I can tell you that there were intense times, but those were fantastic. And in the end, I can say that it has borne fruit. In the first place, it made me more confident at school, because getting through secondary school unscathed felt like a challenge of its own. During this time of life, your personality is going through an important development, and it will be shaped by negative and positive experiences. I was neither one of the most popular nor the least popular students. I remember well that at one day I had to deal with, both literally and figuratively, the big bully of the class, who would occasionally slap some of the boys. And I succeeded. I was confident enough when it was needed. In the second place, in my 6 years of karate, I've made it to the brown belt. I've won about 50 prizes. I became national champion in several disciplines and third of Europe. So what, you might think? Well, the point is that mentoring has had a very great impact here. Although meeting my sensei was more a twist of fate, he has been of a huge importance in my life. If you're still a little skeptical and think, well, nice example, but I don't quite see it happening on a professional level, stick with me then. Because in that case, my second Mr. Miyagi might inspire you. In the second year of my law studies, I wanted to work at a law firm as a part-time job. So I sent application letters and I was invited to have an interview with my other Mr. Miyagi, or rather, Mrs. Miyagi. I had a choice of several future mentors from different law firms, and I chose her. We had a great conversation, and it was just right. The chemistry was there. I was confident that she would be able to deal with my vulnerabilities, and that she also can become a good mentor. Although we sometimes had our difficulties, because that can also happen in a mentoring relationship, we always managed to work things out together. I really learned so incredibly much from her. I remember well when I just started. On one of my first days, she asked me to answer an email with a legal question from a client. And I thought, how do you actually respond properly to your client? Because I had no idea. And really, that's so easy, that's so basic. Only someone has to tell you. Especially if you imagine your client to be a super duper, very important person, and you want to be 100% sure that you answer that person as such on your first working days. I got my first legal document back all in red. And that was the color of the pen with it was corrected. So then I thought, okay, the previous 2 years of my studies were like getting my driver's license. You're not a big danger anymore, you know your theory, but that's all there is to it. You really learn the skill by observing and applying it into practice. Because of her, my learning curve was steep. I was able to become a good lawyer beneath her wings. I soon got my own cases, in which she always remained my sounding board. And again, the mentoring relationship has paid off. The legal case that has stayed with me to this day is the one in which I assisted a woman who had just recovered from cancer. She wanted to go back to work, but her employer was acting strange. She had an important position at a large banking firm. It became clear that they wanted to get rid of her, and it became a case based on the Dutch law regarding equal treatment. An appeal to this law, in this context, was hardly ever won, at least at the time. I'm not sure how it is over here, but it's really hard to prove that you're discriminated against based on illness. Because it was difficult to prove, it was hard to win. But still, I succeeded and we won the case. Again, because I had the privilege of learning the craft of law from a good mentor. At that time, I had everything in place from a materialistic point of view. But from a certain moment, I went to work crying because the work didn't make me happy anymore. In 2014, I decided to quit the legal profession because I believed that you should do what makes you happy in life. And certainly also because I wanted to leave my job well done. Shortly afterwards, within 5 months, even more happened. My father died, my unhealthy relationship came to an end, and with that, I also lost my home. So that was quite a rocky road. I felt completely lost. I no longer knew who, what, where, how, and why. Just when I made the decision to go to the other side of the world with my motorbike and to find some rest and peace, another Mr. Miyagi crossed my path. And nowadays he's my best friend. After this mentor put his mentoring skills to use and some soul searching from my side, I finally came close to myself. For the first time, I really know the answers to the aforementioned questions. I had a throwback to the IT lessons I had in secondary school. Back then, we made our own website with HTML and our own currency calculator in Excel because we were switching from the national currency to the euro. So, while making it, I just couldn't stop and thought, I can do magic, and I absolutely love it. I also remembered that I wanted to become a hacker, so I made the decision to become a software engineer with a passion for security. All these mentoring relationships I told you about have been of irreplaceable value to me. They have been life-changing. And I have told you these stories for a reason. This talk is based on my experience of mentoring since I was 10 years old. And by sharing my experiences as a mentee, I hope I can make you feel how powerful mentoring can be. And there is more. But first, some tip of my own mentor. Don't forget to make a selfie when you are on stage. So, please, all laugh and let's make a quick selfie. Perfect, thanks. So back to the serious part then. When I took my first steps in my career switch to the IT world, I discovered that mentorship is not a matter of course. I was a tester before I started as a software engineer because I was told to take that path if I wanted to become a software engineer without an IT background. I applied, clearly stated that I wanted to become a software engineer, and I was hired. I got training, which consisted of doing some internal courses and getting their certificates, which goes with those courses. And I got my TMAP certificate, which is a well-known quality engineering certificate. I landed in a fast-paced environment, and I certainly learned something, but much of the time I was also trying not to drown. At first, there was no time for real guidance. I asked a lot of questions, but got so many different answers and tips and new questions. It often came down to an even greater challenge not to drown. It was overwhelming. At a certain point, I was kind of paralyzed by analysis, and I decided that things had to change if I wanted to obtain my goal as a software engineer, of becoming a software engineer. Shortly afterwards, I had a fantastic job interview with one of Ordina's directors in a restaurant cafe in Breda. And that's how I became a software engineer. And not just that. I also found a mentor again. That has really been a difference of day and night. For example, there are times when I get lost in reading. And when I finally finish reading the documentation, I think, and what have I just learned? Of course, I've learned something, but often I still don't have the answers to many of the questions that made me read the documentation in the first place. Instead, new questions have come up. There are also plenty of moments when I have to Google pretty much every word in a sentence, concluding there's a lot of jargon. And then jargon in the definitions of that jargon, which keeps me Googling almost every word in a sentence. Well, I try to find my way around, try to invent the wheel myself. I keep on missing something. And that something is context. And that's where mentorships comes in. Because guess who's giving me that context? My own Mr. Miyagi in the IT world. The over-enthusiastic tech lead who cannot stop talking when I ask him a question. And don't get me wrong, I totally love it. And I love the over-enthusiasm. Because every time, over and over again, that's what gives me the crucial context. It really brought home for me the importance of mentorship again. And then it clicked. I have been driven by the question why all my life. My mother always tells me that I used to ask this so often that it became annoying. So when I find out that mentoring is not a matter of course in the IT world, I thought, why? What a pity. And that's exactly the reason why I'm sharing my experiences and ideas with you here today. To add weight to it, I have made the link with research. I looked at whether my own experiences and ideas can be found in society, science, or both, so that they are research-backed. Now that I have shared some experiences, I would like to take a look at the following question with you. What exactly is mentorship? I run with this definition. Mentoring is a learning relationship involving the sharing of skills, knowledge, and expertise between a mentor and mentee through developmental conversations, experience sharing, and role modeling. The relationship may cover a wide variety of contexts and is an inclusive two-way partnership for mutual learning that values differences. If you ask me, mentoring is also a skill and an art that you learn by experiencing it, by doing it, by being it. Mentoring takes different forms and they are all important, but from now on, for this talk, I will focus specifically on apprenticeship because almost all of my experiences, which I've just shared with you, involve this form of mentorship. Apprenticeship focuses on the development of the apprentice, the mentee, where the master, the mentor, trains the apprentice to one day become a master himself. Translated to the IT world, apprenticeship is the training of a new generation of developers through the combination of a general study program enforced with on-the-job training from a mentoring relationship. I'd like to bring up Robert Greene here. This is Robert Greene. He's the author of the books The 48 Laws of Power and Mastery. In his book, The 48 Laws of Power, he states that the ultimate form of power is mastery. In his book Mastery, he explains the power of apprenticeship by explaining the biographical stories of great masters such as Darwin, Da Vinci and Goethe. Because before they became masters of their chosen field, they were apprentices themselves. He says the following about the apprenticeship model. The greatest system ever invented for the training of skills and the achievement of tacit knowledge. In other words, of context. He also speaks about the apprenticeship phase, which he describes as follows. After your formal education, you enter the most critical phase in your life. A second, practical education, known as the apprenticeship. Every time you change careers or acquire new skills, you re-enter this phase of life. Looking at ourselves, don't we often say that we actually learn on the job? The word mentor comes from ancient Greece. According to Homer's Odyssey, mentor is Odysseus' counselor and friend. Looking at my own experiences and the outcome of my research, I can actually conclude that a mentor generally helps the mentee by challenging and encouraging the mentee, giving emotional and moral support, being a sounding board, discussing goals and how to get there, giving advice, integrating the mentee into work processes, the work environment, the organization's culture and politics. So let's say the how we do things here part, and helping to build a network. A mentor helps the mentee to walk the path he already walked by sharing his mistakes, his woes and wins. The mentor already overcame similar challenges and obstacles that a mentee may encounter on his path. It has given me insight and confidence in the things I do. Besides, I could grow safely beneath the wings of my mentor. It helped me to have a steep learning curve. And it's also worth pointing out that the mentoring relationship is one which also benefits the mentor. This is also reflected in the definition of mentoring I just told you about. So, because through the dynamics of mentoring, the mentor is in turn challenged in his mastery. In being so, he develops his leadership skills, his management skills, and his interpersonal skills. Who is the mentor? Mentoring will only have a positive impact on mentees, mentors, and organizations as a whole if it's done in a good and thoughtful way. In fact, at its worst, it can do enormous harm to a person. And this lies in the nature of the mentoring relationship, because it's based on respect, openness, and trust. It reveals vulnerabilities. Therefore, as far as I'm concerned, being a mentor comes with a duty. The duty to do what lies within one's circle of influence to make it a positive experience. On the one hand, by focusing on someone's talents and strengths, and on the other hand, by being honest about someone's improvement points. A good mentor is one who's really capable of giving constructive feedback, strict but fair. It must be someone you can discuss with freely and without fear. Someone who has the mentee's best interests at heart and who understands the path the mentee is walking. That being said, this also means that not just anyone is suitable for the mentor role. A mentoring relationship can make or break a mentee, so I'm going to unpack 10 best practices. The first one is a free choice. And this might sound like common sense, but it's not. It is very important to let the mentor and mentee choose each other, because you can't force a mentoring relationship. There needs to be a good chemistry. That tends to be a good starting point. Also give the mentee the freedom to change mentors if things don't work out along the way, or if other skills and knowledge are needed at a certain point. 2. Train the mentor. Considering mentoring's fragile nature, it should not be taken lightly. In any case, let the mentor walk his own path as a mentor with a set of basic skills. Think of certain coaching skills, for example, how to guide without judging and how to give feedback. 3. Match. Make a match based on working and learning style. Let the mentee and mentor calibrate with each other. Make sure that they discuss each other's do's and don'ts. Make sure that the mentees and mentors' goals, interests and needs are aligned so that they have a good time. Let them have lunch, for example, together. 4. A trust-based relationship. The mentoring relationship is a trust-based one. So that means what happens there must stay there. And in order to let the mentee and mentor build trust, give them enough time, space, and contact moments. Because, again, you can't force trust. 5. An agenda. Set an agenda, which may also consist of just having a walk together, or again, having a lunch together. But besides that, it's also good to agree on intermediate goals and follow-ups together. Because in that way, you really work towards something together. No copy and paste. So this is really, really important. The mentee is not a clone of a mentor. It's really nice to hear how a mentor experienced things, what it was like in his time, what mistakes he made, what the mentor wants to protect the mentee from, what he learned. I think you got it so far, right? The mentee is definitely not a mini-me. Because a mentor shares a lot of himself, this is a major pitfall. The key here is empathy. Being able to feel and understand how somebody else has experienced the world without judging. The mentor must therefore be able to step out of his own frame of reference. He should ask the mentee what the biggest challenges and barriers are to success right now, with what he can help. Ask how the mentee learns the best, because everybody does that in a different way. The answers to these questions might not be the same as what the mentor has been used to all of his life. And he must be able to deal with this. Last but not least, every senior and mentor should not forget how some things they learn now might be easier to learn because they can build on things they have already learned. They too started in the apprenticeship phase with their own challenges and struggles. 7. The workflow. Make mentoring part of a workflow. As an employer or client, offer a sufficient amount of hours. Apart from the on-the-job training and everything that comes with it that comes with it organically. You can think of an average from 1 hour a week. Get some seniors and tech leads who have the core skills and knowledge about the technologies you want, as well as the ability to become good mentors. Put your money where your mouth is by truly providing these growth and development opportunities. You will get very good new employees in return. A mentoring program. Provide a mentoring program. Take different groups into account, like students, graduates, and lateral entrants like me. It's different from an onboarding program or a young professional program with basic training. It's complementary to that and a multiplier to its success. Create a moment of evaluation by asking feedback from the participants. Plan a moment of reflection for yourself because, after all, improvements are mainly discovered along the way. Let it become a matter of continuous improvement and fine-tuning. The mentee's performance. The mentor is not responsible for the mentee's performance. It's up to the mentee what he doesn't do and what he does. The mentor only supports the mentee. Mistakes and successes. Appreciate the mistakes and celebrate the successes. And please, do not only say it, but live it. Give the mentee enough chances to grow just by making these mistakes. Because the greatest growth takes place outside the comfort zone, but that's also the space where the most mistakes are made. So make sure that there really is a culture in which mistakes can be made. The thing that gets me even more than the missed opportunity that mentoring is not yet normalized in our community is what I'm going to tell you now. Because as a community, we have a problem. But before I dive into it, I would like you to ask yourself this first. Did I have to deal with delayed releases? Missed revenues? Increased project costs? An excessive workload or higher stress level? An increase in project duration or operational costs? Reduced quality of the software developed? A limited ability to meet the objectives of the business? If your answer to one or more questions is yes, then I have bad news. If your answer to every question was no, then I have the same bad news, because this is what our future looks like if we keep doing what we are doing now. According to CompTIA's IT Industry Outlook 2022, the required level of expertise in job requirements for software developers is mainly between 3 and 10 years of experience. So the demand for juniors lags behind, even though that they are the meteors and the seniors of our future. According to Skillsoft's data, 75% of global IT decision makers report a skills shortage in the IT workforce. This is an increase of 145% since 2016. Here are some other numbers to put this into a little more perspective. So, it is expected that in 2022, the financial impact of the IT skills shortage will result in a loss of 775 billion worldwide. This is due to delayed releases, missed revenues, or increased costs. Sounds familiar, right? In 2019, this was $302 billion. So less than the half of it. So right now, there are simply not enough qualified candidates. It's probably a dead giveaway, but I'll say it anyway. Doing nothing changes nothing, except for these outrageous numbers, which only get worse as you see. So doing nothing costs more and more time and money. And as a developer, you can notice this, for example, by an excessive workload and higher stress levels. Other signs are an increase in project duration and operational costs. Reduced quality of software developed. Sounds also familiar, right? And a limited ability to meet the business objectives. Mentoring is a solution for our community's problem, because mentoring turns out to be a good talent management strategy, and it ensures learning and growth within the company culture. This is because employees play an active role in knowledge sharing and sharing best practices. By doing so, a company shows that it values investing in development and that it values its workforce. Mentees have better career outcomes than employees without a mentor. And besides, they feel more engaged and satisfied in doing their work. This in turn leads to higher employee retention. The performance of mentees is higher than employees without a mentor. Hence, mentors also experience greater engagement and satisfaction than non-mentors. It also provides an environment in which more new things are created and shared. If mentoring becomes an integral part of an organization, it can be carried out more cost efficient and in a scalable way. I strongly believe that we can create the meteors and seniors of the improved future. We can do this by matching today's students and juniors with a mentor. And beyond that, the system has survived for so long for a reason. Other professions have applied mentoring successfully for many years already. Sometimes it's even mandatory, for example, in the legal profession where I come from. The mentee doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. He gets the tacit knowledge, the context that he cannot get in any other way. It picks up where theory leaves off and lets the mentee build up his own wealth of knowledge, skills, and expertise in an irreplaceable way. That means a steeper learning curve, a faster path to success, and delivering substantial value to the employer and client. I end up where I began, to complete the circle. With karate. For me, mentoring is like a kata. In ancient times, the kata was developed by masters or practitioners of Chinese Kung Fu as a way of archiving their knowledge and passing it on to future generations. Existing forms of knowledge transfer were not suitable for this purpose. Mentoring is just like that, a specific and necessary form of knowledge transfer. It's also crucial to mitigate IT staff shortages as much as possible. I hope my story has made it clear by now. And if you search for mentoring success stories yourself on the web, you'll find an overwhelming amount of those. I want to leave on the note that it's hard to change in one day. I know. But don't forget the bad news here. If we do nothing, we are screwed. So that's why I'd like to challenge you to think how you can integrate mentorship into your daily work. Because I'm really sure that some of you are in the position to bring this into practice. And I really appreciate if you did. So that you take care for yourself and the people who come after us. Just one passionate person can make a great difference. So imagine what we can do as a community. Having your own Mr. Miyagi shouldn't be luck, but a given. Be Mr. Miyagi or find one. Then it's time for the questions. Thank you. All right. So I'll start with the first one. It seems that most mentoring relationships rapidly fade as both sides fail to find value. How do you foresee this problem and prevent it? I'm not. It's hard that I cannot talk with the person who asked this question, but I think if you put the rules, the 10 best practices, like which I just told you about, I think the mentoring relationship won't fade away. So I think that's the way to prevent it. And I think it's also a good practice to have a mentee who really wants to have a mentor, and a mentor who really wants to be a mentor. So I hope that gives an answer to the question. I think we should go to the next one then. Are you yourself a mentor to someone else these days? Yes, I am. Yes. Not in the technical field yet, because I'm a mentee myself in the technical field. And well, actually, I think I can be a mentor on some parts. But like the technical part, because I just made a career switch, for me makes that I cannot be a mentor yet in that part. But I am a mentor. Yes. The next question. How can I find a mentor if I'm not good at social interactions? So for me, it wasn't that hard. I just found that mentor along the way just by talking to that person, and there was a mentoring program within our company. But if it's hard for you to step to someone and just ask, do you want to become my mentor? There are other ways to find a mentor. I actually prefer, if you say it's hard, then I can imagine it's hard, but maybe you can overcome this, because I think it's the best way to find a mentor who's working within the same company, because then you can get the apprenticeship form of mentorship. But if that still feels too hard, there's another option. For example, this one. This is codingcoach.io, and you can find a mentor online. And maybe the barrier is a little lower, because then you can interact online at first, and then you can, after you have some contact already, you can call each other or whatsoever. So this might be a little easier for you. And another one is this one. This is from the London Java user group, but you can use it, even when you're not in London, because that's why I'm showing you this page. It's meetamentor.co.uk. So maybe that's also another option you want to use. Then back to the questions. How would you make the jump to software engineering if you would have to do it again? Oh, good question. Well, I really need to think about a complete answer, but the first thing which came up in my mind is that I won't become a tester first, because I thought that was the right way. They told me that was the right way, but in my opinion, a tester is really a different practice than the practice of a software engineer. So I think I would do that different, yeah. Did you know that you found a mentor in the moment of first meet, or rather after a while? After a few weeks, basically looking back. No, so I had a job interview with one of Ordina's director in the restaurant cafe in Breda I just told you about, and at that point I had no clue about who my mentor was or something like that. I'm not sure if back then I already knew there was some mentoring program. But what I did when I got a job, there was a gathering from colleagues, and I came already to the gathering before my first working day. And at that moment, I met my mentor, and then I heard that, oh, there I have my answer. So at that point, I heard what my first assignment was, and also who my mentor was. And yeah, that's really against my own rule of choosing each other, but it was the right chemistry, so it didn't matter back then. So at that moment, I knew that I got a mentor. Is it possible to self-mentor through internal dialogue? Well, that's a good question. Well, of course. Well, I think I call this kind of mentorship reflection. And that's also always a good thing to do, of course. But like I said, I think if you really want to benefit from a mentoring relationship, I think the best way to do that is in the apprenticeship form, because at that point you have that master apprenticeship relationship, and I think that's the strongest way of mentorship. How do you effectively evaluate mentoring relationship? Yeah, I think you just one of the points. One of the best practices was set an agenda, and I think one of the points on that agenda can be an evaluation of the mentoring relationship, where you just have a conversation with the mentor as a mentee, or with the mentee as the mentor, where you talk about what things are going well, which things are going okay, and which things needs to be better in the future. And if you do that on a regular base, I think that you have there your evaluation moment. Last question, I guess. 10 seconds. I'll do my best. If a mentee is not progressing, isn't it a somehow issue with mentor and mentor's method? Not only... Lost the question. Oh, yeah. Okay, so if a mentee is not progressing, isn't it a somehow issue with mentor and mentor's method, not only mentee's fault? No, of course. So I don't no, it's not. It's always, it takes always two to tango, right? So also at a mentoring relationship, it takes two to tango. So it's, yeah, of course, as a mentee you can do something wrong, and as a mentor you can do something wrong. So I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, but of course, there can be things, issues, which are not only the fault of the mentee. Yeah. So, I guess that's it, right? So, thank you for being here. If you have some other questions, please find me on Twitter or over here, and I'm really happy to answer those questions. Yeah, try to find me and I'll help you out. Thank you very much.